Welcome to Quick Speak, the English podcast.
Hello?
Today we're talking about something everyone experiences at some point. Rejection.
That feeling of getting a no. Yeah. It happens to us all.
We're going to explore what rejection actually is, why it can feel so difficult, and maybe how people learn to handle it.
Right. The idea is to understand how receiving a no isn't always just negative. It can actually help us learn and, grow.
Okay, so let's start right there. What is rejection, fundamentally? When we talk about it, what does it mean?
Well, simply put, it's when someone gives a negative answer to something we do or ask for.
Like asking someone out, or applying for a job, or even just sharing an idea.
Exactly. And psychology tells us it's a pretty strong stressor, especially in relationships and social contexts.
Why does it hit so hard, though? What's happening inside?
It can really impact our feelings about ourselves. It might make people feel less worthy, maybe more anxious in social situations, or just plain sad.
I see. And I read something about rejection sensitivity dysphoria, or RSD. That sounds intense.
Yeah, RSD is, it's when people feel rejection really, really strongly. They can have these immediate, powerful emotional reactions.
Like an overreaction almost.
It feels overwhelming for them, certainly.
Yeah.
It's often seen in people with ADHD, for example. Even a small or perceived rejection can trigger a very big emotional response.
Wow. Okay, so if rejection feels this bad, how do people cope? Is there a way to get stronger against it?
That brings us to resilience. Mental strength, you could call it.
Resilience, right.
It's basically the ability to manage and adapt when things get difficult, like after you've been rejected.
And is that something you're just born with? Or can you develop it?
Oh, definitely something you can learn. The research is pretty clear on that. It's not just fixed.
Okay, so how? How do you build resilience?
Well, a few ways. One is actually experiencing difficult situations, sometimes even on purpose, in a controlled way.
Facing challenges deliberately?
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
Another big one is really thinking about the feedback you get, even negative feedback.
Mm.
And then there are cognitive behavioral techniques.
What are those exactly?
There are methods to help you notice and change negative thought patterns. So learning to see that no as information, maybe, instead of a personal attack.
So not, they hate me, but okay, maybe this approach wasn't right.
Exactly. Someone who's faced a lot of rejection, if they learn from it, can start seeing those no's as hints. Hints for how to get better, or maybe find new chances, instead of just wanting to give up.
That idea of practicing rejection, it makes me think of that story about Jia Jiang.
Ah, yes. The 100 Days of Rejection experiment. That was back in 2012, I think.
Yeah, he did things like asking strangers for really weird stuff, right?
Totally unusual things
Yeah.
every day for 100 days. His goal was exactly what we're talking about, to get less afraid of hearing no, to become more resilient.
And that kind of sparked a whole thing, didn't it? Rejection therapy?
It did, yeah. It led to this whole movement. Rejection therapy is basically where people set specific rejection goals for themselves.
Goals to get rejected. That sounds backward.
It does. But the idea is to train your emotions, to face the fear head on in small ways.
How does that actually help, though? Just getting used to feeling bad.
It's more than that. By confronting the fear instead of avoiding it, people often find their social anxiety actually goes down quite a bit, and their self-confidence goes up.
Because they survived the no.
Exactly. They learn they can handle it. Examples of goals could be anything from asking a stranger for directions you already know, to maybe asking for a small discount you don't expect to get, or even asking someone for a free coffee.
Just small things to get that no.
Small, manageable things. It's sometimes called comfortable effort. It's uncomfortable, yes, but you learn it's okay. Each time you hear no, and you're fine, it helps challenge those negative thoughts like, I'm not good enough, or people don't like me.
Like chipping away at the fear?
Precisely. There was that November of No challenge too, which was aimed at helping people, including those with RSD, build up that tolerance.
This seems like it applies everywhere. Let's talk about some specific areas. What about, say, people starting companies? Startup?
Oh, absolutely. Raising money from investors.
Mm.
That process is often filled with rejection. It can be really painful.
I've heard stories of founders getting rejected like 100 times.
Easily, sometimes more. But the ones who succeed often show incredible determination. They don't just stop.
What do they do with all those no's?
They learn. They analyze the feedback if they get any. They change how they present their idea, their pitch. They might look for different types of investors, or even adjust their whole business plan based on the rejections.
So the rejection actually makes their presentation better.
Often, yes. It forces them to be clearer, more specific. Early pitches can be too vague. Rejection pushes them to really nail down the details. Who are the customers? How will we make money? How will we grow?
That makes sense.
And it's important to remember, sometimes investors say no for reasons that has nothing to do with the idea itself, maybe market conditions or budget limits. Knowing that helps too.
Right, it's not always personal. What about looking for a job? That's something almost everyone goes through.
Definitely. Job searching involves a lot of potential rejection, especially in popular fields like IT or marketing.
You hear about people sending out hundreds of
This is
applications.
very common. Hundreds sometimes, just to get one positive response. I've read stories of people getting rejected 100 times just trying to get their resume noticed, or for one specific role, even with experience.
Why so many rejections?
Well, the hiring process has multiple steps: application review, phone screen, maybe a test, interviews. Each step is a point where rejection can happen. Plus, for many jobs, hundreds, even thousands might apply. So statistically, rejection is likely, especially if your application isn't really tailored to that specific job.
So getting feedback must be crucial.
Incredibly valuable, yeah.
Yeah.
Even a simple no thank you is better than silence. Candidates who take rejection well, who use it to improve, maybe take a course, build their portfolio, get a certification, they generally have a better chance next time around.
Okay, let's switch to sales. Rejection must be like breakfast for salespeople.
Pretty much a daily experience, yes. Especially for people starting out, doing things like cold calling or handing out flyers. They often talk about dozens, maybe hundreds of closed doors or ignored calls as just part of the learning curve.
That sounds really tough mentally.
It is. But often not being able to convince people at first is because something's missing.
Yeah.
Maybe they don't have a good script, they're talking to the wrong person, or their tone is off.
So the rejection is feedback again.
Exactly. As they get feedback, even just a hang-up or door slammed, they try different approaches, different ways of talking, different tones, explaining the value better, building a connection.
And the no isn't always final.
That's a key lesson in sales. A no often means not right now, or maybe not this specific offer.
Yeah.
Good salespeople learn to adapt. They use the rejection to figure out how to tailor their offer better to what the customer actually needs.
And they learn not to take it personally.
Ideally, yes. In sales, the rejection is usually about the product, the timing, or the pitch, not the salesperson as a person. Understanding that helps them stay focused on improving their strategy. All those rejections actually build confidence and adaptability over time, essential skills for good salespeople.
What about creative work, like design or art?
Oh, rejection is incredibly common there too. A designer's portfolio might get turned down by many clients or companies. Artists submit work constantly and face rejection.
Even experienced ones.
Absolutely. We found stories of designers rejected maybe 100 times for jobs, despite having years of experience.
Yeah.
The key seems to be continually improving skills, having a really strong portfolio, and networking, connecting with people.
And rejection can be subtle too, right? Like just not hearing back.
Yeah, ghosting is very common. Or you might get a formal rejection of submitted work. You hear these stories of online designers whose work was rejected hundreds of times before they created something really successful.
Does the internet make it worse? Or better?
Both, probably. Designers compete globally now, which means more competition and potentially more rejection. But it also means more opportunities overall for those who are persistent and learn from the feedback they get.
It seems like people are talking about these rejection stories more openly now.
They really are. Websites and apps like YouTube, Medium, TikTok, they're full of these stories. People make videos or write posts like, I got rejected 100 times, and here's what I learned.
Turning it into content.
Exactly. They share the experience, the numbers, but also what motivated them, what they learned. It's quite inspiring for others who might be facing their own fears of rejection.
So it's not just inspiration, there's practical advice too.
Often, yes. They might share specific tips, how they changed their sales call opening, how they use feedback, how they kept motivated. Social media has become a place for both inspiration and education on handling rejection for growth.
So with rejection being so common, what are some practical ways people are learning to manage it better, beyond just toughing it out?
Well, a big one is that conscious analysis of feedback we talked about. Really trying to understand the why behind the no and using it to improve, not seeing it as a final failure.
What about for people who feel it really intensely, like with RSD?
For them, things like keeping a journal can be helpful. writing about the situation, their feelings, and then trying to look objectively, was this rejection really about me or were there other factors?
Getting some distance.
Exactly. And getting support from others is huge. Mentors, coaches, or even just groups of people in the same field who understand the challenges.
Does improving skills help avoid rejection in the first place?
It can, yes. Better communication and negotiation skills might reduce rejections that happen just because of misunderstandings.
And practice.
Definitely. Things like practicing public speaking or doing mock job interviews, fake interviews, can help people get comfortable with the feeling of potential rejection in a safe space. It prepares them for the real thing and can lower the fear associated with it.
So every no really can be a lesson.
If you approach it that way, yes, it can give you valuable information to get better at whatever you're doing.
Now, this all sounds very positive, embracing rejection, learning from no, but is there a downside? Could praising rejection too much be, I don't know, harmful?
That's a really important point, and yes, some sources raise concerns. While these stories of overcoming 100 rejections are inspiring, there's a worry that over-glorifying it could push people to think they must never give up, no matter the cost.
Like persistence at all costs.
Exactly. Experts caution that you can't just copy someone else's success story without considering your own situation, your resources, your network, your financial safety net.
Not everyone has the same support system.
Right. And trying to succeed just through sheer willpower, facing endless rejection, can lead to serious burnout or deep disappointment if things don't work out. Some psychologists also warn that for people with anxiety, just focusing on getting more no's without professional support could actually make things worse.
Okay, that makes sense. And what about rejection therapy itself? Any specific concerns there?
Yeah, some critics worry that it might encourage people to push boundaries in ways that are inappropriate or make others uncomfortable.
Like bothering strangers just for the sake of the experiment?
Potentially, yes. There's a line between challenging yourself and, say, infringing on someone's personal space or being genuinely annoying. The discussion is shifting towards ensuring these rejection goals are ethical, legal, and don't cause undue distress to others.
So be mindful of the other person, too.
Absolutely. It's about managing your own response,
Yeah.
not just creating awkward situations for everyone else.
Thinking about today's world, we have the gig economy, global competition. Does rejection feel different now? More common?
It certainly seems more frequent for many people. In the gig economy, freelancers and startups are constantly pitching for work, which naturally means facing rejection more often than someone in a stable, long-term job might.
And the global aspect.
Yeah, with the remote work being easier, you're often competing with professionals from all over the world. That increases the number of applicants for jobs or projects, making rejection statistically more likely.
It sounds like a lot of pressure.
It can be. There's often pressure to succeed quickly, which can make it harder to accept setbacks or rejections. Failure can feel like a bigger risk when time and money feel limited.
You mentioned athletes using this concept, too.
Yes, it's fascinating. That example of the Australian boxer who deliberately sought out 100 uncomfortable social situations and rejections, like asking strangers for hugs before the Olympics.
Why would a boxer do that?
To build mental toughness. Elite sport is incredibly high pressure. By facing those social rejections, he was training his mind to handle pressure, potential failure, and public scrutiny, things he definitely face in the ring. It shows rejection can be a planned strategy for mental development.
So wrapping this up, we've seen that rejection is, well, it's just a normal part of life and work, isn't it?
It really is. And instead of letting it stop us, the key seems to be learning from each no.
Using the feedback, whether it's direct or indirect, to improve our skills or find better opportunities.
Right. And facing that fear, maybe step by step, can actually make you stronger and more confident over time.
Remember, maybe every no you receive is just guiding you a little closer to the right yes for you.
A good way to think about it.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive today.
My pleasure.
To help you learn English more effectively, please consider subscribing to our podcast.
And you can also visit the website mentioned in the description. We'll have more learning materials there, like vocabulary words and exercises based on today's discussion.
Thanks for listening.